Alright, this is the last video in this unit, and this is on rational numbers. Okay, so we need a couple of definitions first. Make sure you get these copied down. A rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction. That's it. If you can write it as a fraction, then it is a rational number. An irrational number, then, would be the exact opposite. If rational can be written as a fraction, then irrational must be something that cannot be written as a fraction. And that's all there is to it. We are going to, in a minute, look at more of these and see what numbers can we write as fractions, what can we not write as fractions. But first, before we do that, we need to remind ourselves of something. To change from a fraction to a decimal, what do we do? So in other words, if I wanted to make 1/4 into a decimal, well, in order to do this, I need to recall what this line in the fraction means to do. Well, that line means to divide. And so if I have 1/4 and I want to make it a decimal, that means I'm going to take 1 and divide it by 4. Now, obviously 4 does not go into 1, so we have to add a decimal, and we put it up top and add a 0. And 4 goes into 10 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. When I subtract, I get 2. Add another 0. Bring that down, and 4 goes into 20 exactly 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. And so 1/4 as a decimal would be 0.25 once you do your division. But that's the important thing to remember. To change a fraction to a decimal, you divide the numerator by the denominator. That's it. So make sure you have that written down. And it's important because we're going to use that fact to discover what things are rational and what things are irrational. It's going to turn out there's a lot more things that are rational than are irrational. Okay, so let's look at these. Remember, the definition of rational was any number that can be written as a fraction. So when I look at these, this is a fraction, so that's rational. That's a fraction, that's rational. That's a fraction, that's rational. That's a fraction, it's rational. But let's look at what these are actually equal to. So 20 divided by 5. Well, we should all know that. 5 goes into 20 exactly 4 times. So 4 is a rational number. It can be written as a fraction. In fact, we could also write 4 as just 4 over 1. That's a fraction. It's rational. How about this one? What is negative 14 divided by positive 7? Well, negative divided by positive, when the signs are different, the answer is negative. 7 goes into 14 twice. So negative 2 is a rational number. Rationals, then, we know could be positive or negative. Doesn't matter because they can both be written as fractions. Okay? This one, again, we know this is a fraction, so it's rational. When I divide two negatives, I get a positive. 8 goes into 32 4 times again. So again, I see that I have a rational number. When I have a fraction, it doesn't matter if both numbers are positive, both are negative, one's positive and one's negative. It's a fraction, so it's a rational number. Okay? So we know positive whole numbers, negative whole numbers. Those are rational. Well, let's look at a couple more examples. 3 over 4. Well, this one's a little bit different because 4 doesn't go into 3 evenly. We have to divide like we were talking about on the last one, but it helps if you set it up right. You're going to put the 3 on the inside and divide it by 4. Well, again, 4 doesn't go into 3, so I add my decimal, add my 0. 4 goes into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. When I subtract, I have 2 left over, so I add another 0 to bring down, and 4 goes into 20 5 times. 4 times 5 is exactly 20. That's it. So 3/4 we know is rational. But if we actually divide that out, we find out it is a decimal. It's a decimal that stops, or a terminating decimal. Okay? Terminate just means to end or to stop. So this is a terminating decimal. Well, it turns out that all terminating decimals are rational, because if you have a terminating decimal, like say 0.2, I can always write that as a fraction. There's another way to read this besides 0.2. It is 2/10. There's my fraction, 2/10. It's a fraction, it's rational. So any terminating decimal is rational. All right, what about 1/3? Well, again, 3 does not go into 1 evenly, so we have to do our division here. We'll add our decimal, add a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. You subtract, you get 1. Add a 0 and bring it down. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, you get 1. Add a 0, bring it down, and hopefully by now we can see there's a pattern here. I keep getting 9 and 1 left over and bring it down for 10. So I keep getting 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So we call that a repeating decimal. And if you remember, you can write repeating decimals with a bar over them. But again, this started as a fraction. If it's a fraction, that means it's rational. Well, it turns out any repeating decimal can be written as a fraction, so it is rational. So we know whole numbers are rational. Decimals that terminate, that stop, are rational. Decimals that repeat are rational. And we know that these numbers can be positive or negative. So there's very few things that are irrational. Here's an example of one, pi. Pi is an irrational number. If you put pi in a calculator, it will tell you it is 3.141592654, and then it stops. That doesn't mean it's a terminating decimal. It only stops because it's out of space. If there was more space in the calculator, you would get more numbers after the 4. Because I'm sure you learned about pi before, it doesn't end. It just keeps going and going and going. Some people, for some unknown reason, have even memorized pi out to thousands and thousands of places. I'm not really sure why you'd want to do that. Some people did. And so that is an irrational number. It's a decimal. It doesn't terminate. It just goes on forever, but it never repeats. You see, it's constantly changing. Those are the only numbers that cannot be written as fractions. They're the irrationals. That's it. So a rational number can be positive or negative. Whole numbers, terminating decimals, or repeating decimals. And obviously, by definition, it's fractions. A rational number can be written as a fraction. So if you see a fraction, you know it's rational. And all of these things, whole numbers, terminating decimals, and repeating decimals, can all be written as fractions. So they're rational. And it doesn't matter if they're positive or negative. An irrational number, there's very few of them compared to the rationals. They are a non-terminating, in other words, it never ends, non-repeating decimal. That's it. That's the only things that are irrational. A decimal that goes on forever without repeating. That's it. And so that's what you need to remember, the difference between rationals and irrationals.